Welcome back to Reflections on Horror. My challenge today is to cover off the Rec Quadrilogy in 8 minutes or less. But let's start off with why I even have this box set. Because I live in Canada, I find it really hard to access a lot of non-Hollywood digital horror. Now I realize that just comes down to licensing agreements, and one of the ones that I was really struggling to acquire is the 2007 movie Rec. The remake, Quarantine, I could get all over the place, including all of its sequels. Unfortunately, there is a big difference between Rec and Quarantine, and Rec is far superior in my opinion. And certainly, the franchise story is far superior. So with that, physical media for the win, let's dive into the 4 movies. Now, our movies are Rec, Rec 2, Rec Genesis, and Rec Apocalypse. Before we go any further, Genesis and Apocalypse, films within a horror movie zombie franchise. Does that sound familiar to anyone? Yes, we have some similar naming conventions, but Rec is definitely a standout zombie franchise. Hopping into what I loved about Rec. The original movie focuses on a protagonist who is a young TV reporter filming one of those, day in the life spots. She is going to tag along with a fire department. Not the worst job for anyone to have, at least not for a night. Unfortunately for our protagonist, Miss Vidal, and her cameraman, because this is a found footage movie, we need to have a cameraman. Her first responder unit ends up at an apartment complex in downtown Barcelona. This multi-story apartment building soon becomes the home of isolation horror. Already we hit that trifecta. Zombies, found footage, isolation. Those 3 go together so well in this movie. By the time they arrive at the apartment complex, all hell breaks loose and it never ceases, not until the very last frame. Something which makes this movie quite famous. Yes, it gets gory, it is heavily action-packed, and because it's found footage, for some people, the shaky camera can be a little too much. I love it. It's one of the best found footage movies ever made to this day. Skip ahead, Rec 2. Rec 2 pulls off an amazing feat. It enhances your enjoyment of the first movie, but if you decide to never go past the first movie, you can still feel satisfied. You don't feel like you're missing anything, but if you go ahead and watch Rec 2, you get to see the first film through a totally new set of eyes. The way they do this is by weaving in 2 new storylines to the exact same setting. We are on the exact same night, and throughout this found footage film, we get to see instances that occur before the beginning of the first movie, before the end of the first movie, and since it's a sequel, naturally continuing the story of what happened in that apartment building. I love it. My number one reason is it manages to show religion and science working together. That's one of my sweet spots. Hello, Prince of Darkness from John Carpenter. Whenever these 2 concepts, which are polar opposites, are working together towards the same goal in a horror movie, I'm usually in. And that is definitely the case with Rec 2. Now, Rec Genesis. Here we take a slight diversion, but it's a fun one. We've been walking down this straight and narrow path focused on one specific incident on one evening in one place in Barcelona. Now we found a little path to go on, a new place for a little bit of a zombie incident. What better setting to continue found footage zombie isolation horror than a wedding? You're already super stressed out. You're surrounded by the people you love. You're also surrounded by the people you don't like very much, but your family forced you to invite them. And everybody is getting way too inebriated. Let's face it, weddings already have enough bad stuff happening at them. Why not allow people to start getting a little bitey while we're at it? At least our zombies are dressed for the occasion. I thought this movie was a fun little romp. Yes, it's a diversion. It doesn't need to be in the same universe as Rec, but as you'll see, they did make an attempt to bring it back into our story in the fourth movie. Now, as for Rec 4, Apocalypse, this might be where some people fall off, and I get it. The main challenge for me with this movie is that it's no longer found footage. What made Rec so memorable, why it's called Rec, is because somebody was recording it. We were only seeing and learning through whatever was captured by our POV. Now in this case, we're still isolationist and we're still zombie-centric. Now we're on a giant ship that is floating out in what I presume is the Atlantic Ocean. We are continuing the same storyline from the original two movies, focusing far more now on the scientific aspects of what happened. The one thing we know about zombies when we see them is their symptoms. So what happens when we can no longer identify either symptomatic zombie or somebody who is asymptomatic? So there is a genius little switch in this one. I think it's still kind of fun. It tries to be so true to the ending of Rec 2, and I do give them thumbs up for attempting to take that and weave it into this new tale. It is rather uneven, and when it comes to the entire quadrilogy, if it were up to me, I'd say it's worth the money and it's probably going to be a rewatch on all of them. But if you are unsure or you really just want the best quality, I say take 1 and 2, book off a little bit of time, darken the lights, get a giant bowl of popcorn, and watch those back to back as one extended viewing, and you are going to be highly satisfied. What did you think of Rec? Let me know what your thoughts are on any of the movies, the entire quadrilogy. Go ahead, even the remakes, Quarantine, and those sequels. Are you a fan of them? Do you like what they did? Are you still on the side that says this is not a zombie movie? Tell me all about it. Until next time, settle in with that big bowl of popcorn and get frightful.